The Martinez family lived in Oak Ridge Heights, a picturesque suburban neighborhood with manicured lawns and matching mailboxes. Miguel Martinez, a dedicated father with tired eyes and a warm smile, was raising his 2 children alone while his wife Sarah battled stage 3 breast cancer. 10-year-old Emma, with her mother's dark curls and determination, watched as her father stretched himself thin between work, hospital visits, and keeping their home together. Her younger brother Lucas, just 8, with big brown eyes that missed nothing, had been quieter since their mom had been admitted to the hospital 3 weeks ago. One evening, as Miguel sat at the kitchen table sorting through medical bills, Emma noticed the worry lines deepening across his forehead. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, climbing onto the chair beside him. Miguel quickly shuffled the papers together, forcing a smile. "Just grown-up stuff, Mija. Nothing for you to worry about." But Emma had overheard the late-night phone calls. She knew their insurance wasn't covering everything for her mom's treatments. That night, after their father had tucked them in, Emma whispered to Lucas across their shared bedroom. "We need to help Mom and Dad," she said firmly. "Oh, we're just kids," Lucas replied, hugging his stuffed dinosaur tighter. "Remember when we raised money for the animal shelter at school? We sold lemonade." The next morning over breakfast, the children presented their plan to their father. Miguel's eyes grew misty as Emma showed him the poster she had already made. "Lemonade for Mom's medicine, $1, decorated with carefully drawn lemons and hearts. We can use the table from the garage," Lucas added eagerly. "And I can squeeze the lemons." Miguel knelt down and pulled both children into a tight hug. "Your mom would be so proud of you both," he whispered, his voice catching slightly. That Saturday morning, Miguel helped his children set up a small lemonade stand at the edge of their front yard. He steadied the folding table while Emma arranged plastic cups in neat rows. Lucas proudly taped their handmade signs to the front. "Help our mom fight cancer," with a family photo showing Sarah in her hospital room, still smiling despite the 4 tubes and hair loss. "Remember to thank everyone who stops," Miguel reminded them as he stepped back to admire their work. The simple wooden stand, decorated with yellow streamers and hopeful smiles, stood as a testament to the children's love for their mother. As the first neighbors began walking by, Emma stood tall and called out, "Lemonade for sale. Help our mom's cancer treatment." Lucas waved shyly beside her, holding up a pitcher of fresh squeezed lemonade that he and his father had made together that morning. Miguel watched from the porch, his heart simultaneously breaking and swelling with pride as his children took their first small stand against the overwhelming odds their family faced. Karen Williams had lived in Oak Ridge Heights for 15 years and had served on the HOA board for the last 5. From her second-story window, she had an unobstructed view of the neighborhood's comings and goings, a position she considered vital to maintaining the community's standards. That Saturday morning, as she adjusted her curtains, Karen spotted the lemonade stand appearing on the Martinez's front lawn. She frowned, immediately reaching for her HOA handbook. "Unauthorized commercial activity," she muttered to herself, running her finger down the list of regulations. Page 42, Section 6, Paragraph C. Karen watched as several neighbors stopped at the stand. Her irritation grew when she saw Mrs. Chen from across the street hand the children what looked like a $20 bill. This wasn't just breaking the rules, it was setting a dangerous precedent. Straightening her designer cardigan, Karen marched across the street. The click of her heels on the sidewalk announced her approach before she arrived. "Excuse me," she called out sharply, interrupting a young couple who were just paying for their lemonade. "What exactly is going on here?" Emma's smile faltered slightly. "We're selling lemonade, ma'am. Would you like some? It's for our mom's cancer treatments." Karen's eyes narrowed as she took in the homemade signs with their emotional appeal. "This is a clear violation of the HOA regulations. No commercial activities are permitted in residential front yards." Lucas looked up at her with confusion. "But, we're just trying to help our mom." "I understand you have a situation," Karen replied, her tone making it clear she had little sympathy, "but rules exist for a reason. If we let one family bend them, soon everyone will think they can do whatever they want. Property values will plummet." Miguel stepped forward from the porch. "They're just kids trying to do something good. The neighbors don't mind." "What, neighbors don't mind, isn't relevant to HOA policy," Karen replied, pulling out her phone. She began taking pictures of the stand from multiple angles. "This documentation will be presented at the next board meeting. For now, you need to dismantle this immediately. Please," Emma said, her voice smaller now. "The doctors said Mom needs a special treatment that costs." "That's not my concern," Karen interrupted, already dialing another number. If you don't remove this stand, I'll have no choice but to call the authorities. Miguel put his hands protectively on his children's shoulders. You're calling the police on children selling lemonade for their sick mother? Karen turned away slightly. I'm calling the police about an unauthorized commercial enterprise violating community covenants. Into the phone she said, yes, I'd like to report a code violation requiring immediate attention. As she continued her call, Lucas's eyes filled with tears. Emma stood frozen, still holding a cup of lemonade she had been about to hand to a customer. The few neighbors who had gathered began to whisper among themselves, shooting disapproving glances at Karen. Miguel knelt down beside his children. It's okay, mijos. Sometimes adults forget what's really important. Pack up your things for now. As the children began slowly putting away their cups, Karen stood watching, arms crossed, waiting for the police to arrive. She didn't notice the neighbors taking pictures of her, or the growing looks of disgust on their faces. She was too busy mentally composing her victory email to the HOA board about how she had single-handedly prevented the neighborhood from descending into commercial chaos. 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up in front of the Martinez home. Two officers, Officer Rodriguez, a veteran cop with kind eyes, and Officer Chin, a younger female officer, stepped out and surveyed the scene. By this time, several neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk, watching as the children sat dejectedly on the porch steps. Their lemonade stand had been half-packed away, cups stacked sadly beside a pitcher still full of fresh lemonade. Karen Williams strode confidently toward the officers, hand extended. Thank you for responding so promptly. I'm Karen Williams, HOA board member. This unauthorized commercial activity needs to be addressed immediately. Officer Rodriguez glanced at the children on the porch, then back at Karen. Ma'am, you called 911 about a lemonade stand? I called the non-emergency line about a clear violation of our community covenants, Karen corrected, opening her phone to show a PDF of the HOA regulations. Section 6, Paragraph C clearly states that no commercial activities are permitted in residential front yards without prior board approval. Officer Chin walked over to Miguel and the children. Sir, what's going on here today? Miguel stood up, keeping a protective arm around his children. My kids wanted to raise money for their mother, my wife. She's in Memorial Hospital with stage 3 breast cancer. The insurance doesn't cover some of her treatments, so they thought this might help. Emma held up one of their signs showing the family photo with Sarah in her hospital bed. Officer Chen's expression softened. That's really thoughtful of you guys. It's still against the rules, Karen interjected, having followed the officer. Rules that every homeowner agreed to when they moved here. Officer Rodriguez joined them, surveying the modest stand. Ma'am, we're not really in the business of shutting down children's lemonade stands. This isn't about lemonade, Karen insisted. It's about maintaining standards. If we allow this, what's next? Yard sales every weekend? Food trucks? Home businesses with clients coming and going at all hours? The officers exchanged a look. Officer Rodriguez sighed and turned to Miguel. Sir, technically there might be zoning ordinances regarding commercial activity in residential areas, but... He trailed off, looking uncomfortable with the situation. Lucas, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. Do you want some lemonade, officer? I squeezed it myself. Officer Chin smiled. I'd love some, buddy. As Karen began to protest, Officer Chin pulled out her wallet and handed Lucas a $20 bill. Keep the change, okay? Officer Rodriguez turned to Karen. Ma'am, we've addressed your complaint by informing the family of potential zoning concerns. There's nothing more for us to do here today. But they haven't removed it. Karen exclaimed, gesturing at the half-dismantled stand. I can't force them to stop, Officer Rodriguez explained patiently. This is a civil matter between them and the HOA. If you have a problem with it, you should follow whatever procedures your HOA has for violations. Karen filmed the entire interaction on her phone, narrating loudly. The police are refusing to enforce clear rules. This will all be documented for the board meeting on Tuesday. As the officers prepared to leave, Officer Rodriguez quietly approached Miguel. Hey, my sister had breast cancer last year. Rough journey. Memorial Hospital has a good financial assistance program. Ask for Patricia in billing. Tell her Joey Rodriguez sent you. Miguel nodded gratefully. Thank you. The police left and Karen stood fuming on the sidewalk. This isn't over, she declared to no one in particular before marching back to her house. The neighbors who had been watching began to approach the stand. Mrs. Chin from across the street spoke first. Miguel, tell the kids to set the stand back up. We'll all buy some lemonade. As the children hesitantly began reassembling their stand, more neighbors gathered. Soon a small line had formed, with everyone paying far more than the $1 asking price. From her window, Karen watched, already drafting an email to the entire HOA board about the blatant disregard for community standards unfolding across the street. Tina Patel had been walking her corgi when she witnessed the entire confrontation. As a social media manager for a local business, she knew a compelling story when she saw one. Back at home, she uploaded the video she'd discreetly taken with her phone to the neighborhood's Facebook group. Just watched our HOA board member Karen Williams call the police on two young children running a lemonade stand to help pay for their mother's cancer treatments. Officers refused to shut it down. The Martinez family could use our support right now. Emma and Lucas are still at the corner of Maple and Oak with the best lemonade in town. Each cup helps fund Sarah Martinez's cancer treatments at Memorial Hospital. The post spread through the neighborhood's digital channels like wildfire. Within an hour, it had over 200 comments, most expressing outrage at Karen's actions. Jessica Lynn, a reporter for the local news station who lived 3 streets over, saw the post during her lunch break. Though technically off-duty, her journalistic instincts kicked in. She grabbed her press badge and drove to the Martinez home. By the time Jessica arrived, the scene had transformed. At least 30 neighbors surrounded the lemonade stand, which was now reinforced with additional folding tables borrowed from nearby homes. Someone had brought a canopy tent to shield the children from the sun. Another neighbor had added homemade cookies to the offerings, with a sign reading, "All proceeds to the Martinez Family Fund." Jessica approached Miguel, introducing herself both as a neighbor and a reporter. "Would you mind if I interviewed your family for Channel 7 News? People should hear your story." Miguel hesitated, looking at his children who were busy serving customers. "We didn't want to make a spectacle. We just needed help with Sarah's bills." "Sometimes the best way to get help is to let people know you need it," Jessica replied gently. "Your children are doing something beautiful here. Let me help amplify that." Miguel agreed, and Jessica set up a small interview area under a nearby tree. Emma and Lucas took turns explaining their mother's condition: the aggressive cancer, the experimental treatment not covered by insurance, the mounting bills that kept their father awake at night. "Mom always taught us to help others," Emma explained, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "Now it's our turn to help her." Lucas added, "She's the best mom ever. She needs medicine that costs a lot of money, but she's going to get better." When the camera turned to Miguel, he struggled to maintain his composure. "Sarah was diagnosed 8 months ago. She's fighting hard, but the recommended treatment is nearly $90,000, and our insurance only covers the standard protocol. We're hoping." His voice broke slightly, "We're praying this gives her the best chance to watch our children grow up." From her window, Karen watched the news crew with growing alarm. She had expected her neighbors to eventually see reason and support the rules that maintain their property values. Instead, the situation was spiraling beyond her control. She called the HOA president, Richard Thompson. "Richard, this has become completely ridiculous. There's a news crew at the Martinez house, and people are acting like I'm the villain for simply enforcing our agreed-upon rules." Richard sighed audibly on the other end of the line. "I've been getting calls about this all afternoon, Karen. Did you really need to involve the police?" "Of course I did. No one was taking action. They're raising money for cancer treatments, for heaven's sake. Sometimes compassion takes precedence over bylaws." "So you're taking their side? What about Section 6, Paragraph C?" Karen demanded. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Until then, please don't escalate this situation any further. And Karen? Maybe stay off social media tonight." By evening, the Channel 7 News segment had aired on the 6 o'clock broadcast. Jessica had done a masterful job capturing both the family's struggle and the community's response to Karen's actions. Viewers across the city were touched by the Martinez children's devotion to their mother. The comment sections exploded with support, and a local online fundraiser quickly appeared, already gathering donations from strangers who had seen the news story. But in the Oak Ridge Heights Neighbors Facebook group, something else was brewing. A private message thread had been started by Emma and Lucas's third-grade teacher, Ms. Winters. "What those kids are doing is beautiful. What Karen did was heartless. I think our neighborhood needs to send a clear message about the kind of community we want to be. I have an idea that will make the Martinez family feel supported and might teach Karen something about priorities. Who's with me?" The responses poured in immediately. "Count me in. Whatever you need. Just tell us what to do." Ms. Winters' living room had never been so crowded. Nearly 30 neighbors squeezed onto sofas, perched on armrests or sat cross-legged on the floor. The elementary school teacher stood before her makeshift whiteboard, a large mirror with dry erase markers, where she had written, Operation Lemonade Brigade. "Thanks for coming on such short notice," she began. "I think we all agree that what happened today was unacceptable." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "I've taught both Emma and Lucas. They're wonderful children. Their mother Sarah volunteered in our classroom before her diagnosis, bringing in homemade treats for every holiday." Ms. Winters paused, composing herself. "This family doesn't deserve what happened today." Mrs. Chin raised her hand. "Karen has been on a power trip for years. Remember when she measured the height of my rose bushes with a ruler and then fined me $50? Several others shared similar stories. Citations for garage doors left open an hour too long, warnings about holiday decorations that weren't aesthetically cohesive with the neighborhood theme, fines for garbage bins visible from the street. "This isn't just about supporting the Martinez family anymore," said Mr. Jackson, a retired civil rights attorney. "It's about what kind of community we want to be. Are we going to let one person's rigid interpretation of rules overshadow basic human compassion?" Ms. Winters smiled. "Exactly. Which brings me to my plan." She uncapped her marker with a flourish. "Tomorrow is Sunday. I propose we set up lemonade stands all over the neighborhood, especially concentrated around Karen's house." The room erupted in excited chatter. "I've already created a private Facebook group called Lemonade Brigade. It has over 100 members already. We'll coordinate locations, supplies, and shifts." She pointed to a map of the neighborhood she had printed out. "I've marked optimal locations for maximum visibility. We need volunteers for each station." Hands shot up across the room. Ms. Winters continued, "This needs to be bigger than just us. I've contacted local businesses for support." Mark from the corner grocery store stood up. "I'm donating all the lemons, sugar, and ice you'll need. Just bring containers to my shop tomorrow morning." Lisa from the print shop added, "I'm staying late tonight to make professional signs for every stand. They'll have information about Sarah's condition and a QR code linking to the online fundraiser." "Perfect," Ms. Winters nodded. "Now, this is important. We need to make sure our behavior is above reproach. No confrontations with Karen. No trespassing on her property. We're going to kill her with kindness while making a point." The planning continued late into the night. Teams were formed, supplies were allocated, and a detailed schedule was created. Someone suggested yellow t-shirts, and another neighbor volunteered to have them rush printed overnight. Meanwhile, in another part of town, the Martinez family was overwhelmed by the day's events. Miguel sat at his kitchen table, staring at the jar full of cash and checks. Nearly $1,200 raised in just one afternoon. Emma and Lucas had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from the emotional day. His phone buzzed with a text from Ms. Winters. "The neighborhood is with you. Tomorrow will be even better. Keep the faith." Across the neighborhood, Karen Williams scrolled through her social media feeds with growing horror. She had been portrayed as a villain in the news segment, and the neighborhood group, which she had been removed from as an administrator, was filled with thinly veiled references to tomorrow's plans. Whatever was brewing, she knew it wasn't going to strengthen her position on the HOA board. She sent a final email to Richard Thompson. "As an elected member of this board, I expect your full support in enforcing our regulations tomorrow, regardless of emotional appeals. These rules exist for a reason." Richard never replied. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear, as if even the weather had joined the neighborhood's conspiracy of kindness. Miguel was making pancakes when the doorbell rang. Emma and Lucas raced to answer it, finding Ms. Winters on their doorstep with an enormous box. "Good morning, Martinez family," she announced cheerfully. "These are for you." Inside the box were 3 bright yellow t-shirts with Lemonade Brigade printed across the front and on the back, supporting the Martinez family, one cup at a time. "What's going on?" Miguel asked, confused by the delivery. Ms. Winters smiled mysteriously. "Just get dressed and bring your lemonade stand to the corner by 10 a.m. Trust me." As the Martinez family set up their stand, they noticed something unusual. Cars were pulling up all around the neighborhood, unloading folding tables, coolers, and pitchers. Neighbors they recognized, and some they didn't, were setting up lemonade stands on almost every corner. By 9:45 a.m., the transformation was complete. Oak Ridge Heights had become a sea of yellow t-shirts and lemonade stands. But the most remarkable sight was on Sycamore Street, where Karen Williams lived. No fewer than 8 lemonade stands had been positioned on lawns surrounding her house, each one just within the property line of a willing neighbor, each one facing directly toward her home. At precisely 10 a.m., Mr. Jackson stepped into the middle of the main intersection with a bullhorn. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Lemonade Brigade is officially open for business. Every stand you see today is raising money for Sarah Martinez's cancer treatments. Find the stand nearest you or try them all. Each one has a special recipe." People poured out of their homes. Families who had seen the news report drove in from neighboring communities. Children pulled their parents from stand to stand, comparing different lemonade flavors: classic, strawberry, lavender, mint. Each stand had a poster with Sarah's photo and story. Each volunteer wore the bright yellow shirt. The atmosphere was part block party, part revolution. Karen first realized something was happening when she tried to leave her house to attend church. Stepping onto her porch, she froze at the sight that greeted her. From every direction, lemonade stands hemmed in her property. Cheerful yellow signs pointed directly at her house with arrows reading, "Karen called the police on kids raising money for cancer treatment." She retreated inside, peering through her blinds at the growing crowd. Her phone rang. It was Richard Thompson. "Karen, have you seen what's happening out there?" "Of course I've seen it," she snapped. "This is harassment. They're targeting me specifically." "They're raising money for a good cause," Richard replied calmly. "I just donated $100 myself." "You're the HOA president. You're supposed to enforce the rules, not break them." "The board had an emergency meeting by phone this morning. We've voted to create an exemption for charitable fundraising events, effective immediately." Karen sputtered in disbelief. "You can't do that without proper notice and—" "It's done, Karen. And between us, after this display of community solidarity, I'd suggest you reconsider your approach to enforcement." The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone in disbelief. Outside, the event continued to grow. Around noon, a Channel 7 News van pulled up. Jessica Lynn had returned, this time with a full crew. She moved from stand to stand, interviewing volunteers and collecting stories about Sarah Martinez and the community's response to yesterday's incident. Then, to everyone's surprise, a police cruiser rolled slowly down the street. Officer Rodriguez and Officer Chen stepped out, surveying the scene with apparent amusement. "We received a complaint about unauthorized commercial activity," Officer Rodriguez announced loudly. The crowd tensed until he broke into a grin and pulled out his wallet. "So we came to support the cause." The officers made a show of visiting every single stand, buying lemonade and leaving generous tips. Just when it seemed the day couldn't get more surreal, a black SUV with city plates pulled up. Mayor Johnson herself emerged, flanked by two aides carrying boxes of cups emblazoned with the city seal. The mayor made her way to the Martinez family's original stand, where she embraced Miguel and the children. "The whole city is talking about what happened yesterday," she said, loud enough for nearby news cameras to catch. "Today, I'm proud to announce that by executive order, I'm declaring this Community Kindness Day in our city. Sometimes rules need to flex when compassion calls." She handed Miguel an official-looking document and posed for photos with Emma and Lucas. The crowd erupted in applause. From her window, Karen watched the scene unfold with mounting horror. The mayor? This had gone beyond neighborhood politics. She was becoming a citywide symbol of heartlessness. For the first time since the conflict began, Karen Williams felt something new: doubt. By mid-afternoon, the crowd showed no sign of thinning. If anything, the mayor's appearance had attracted even more visitors to Oak Ridge Heights. The Lemonade Brigade stands were running low on supplies despite 3 emergency restocking runs to the grocery store. Karen Williams had spent hours pacing her living room, alternating between fury and anxiety. She had called the non-emergency police line twice more, only to be gently informed by the dispatcher that the event had received proper permits thanks to the mayor's executive order. Finally, after a particularly loud cheer from outside, Karen snapped. She straightened her cardigan, applied a fresh coat of lipstick, and marched toward her front door. She would address this situation directly. She would explain to these people about property values, about precedents, about the slippery slope of rule-breaking. Karen stepped onto her porch and was immediately aware of dozens of eyes turning in her direction. Conversations faltered. A few phones raised to record whatever might happen next. She lifted her chin and walked purposefully toward the nearest lemonade stand, operated by the Henderson family from 2 doors down. "I'd like to speak to whoever is in charge of this demonstration," Karen announced, her voice tight. Mr. Henderson smiled blandly. "It's not really that kind of event, Karen. Everyone just came together organically. Would you like some lemonade? This batch has fresh mint." Before she could respond, Richard Thompson approached, flanked by 3 other HOA board members. "Karen," he greeted her with a nod. "Good of you to join us. The board has been volunteering at different stands all day." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I see you've all decided to ignore the covenants you swore to uphold." Richard sighed. "Actually, we held an emergency session this morning. The board voted unanimously to amend Section 6, Paragraph C to create exemptions for charitable fundraising events." "Unanimously?" Karen echoed. "I'm on the board. I didn't vote." "You were the only absence," Richard explained. "We tried calling you 3 times." A small crowd had gathered around them, watching the exchange with undisguised interest. "This is completely irregular," Karen protested. "Changes to the covenants require proper notice, a comment period." "Emergency provisions, Article 4, interjected Mrs. Gonzalez, another board member. "The board may enact temporary amendments in extraordinary circumstances pending formal review." Karen opened her mouth to argue further when she spotted the Martinez children watching her from a few yards away. For the first time she truly looked at them, their hopeful faces, their yellow shirts, the photo of their mother they wore as buttons. Something shifted in Karen's expression. The HOA president lowered his voice. "Karen, I understand you care about rules and property values. We all do. But this family is facing something none of us would want to face. Sometimes being a community means knowing when to bend." In the awkward silence that followed, Jessica Lynn from Channel 7 approached with a microphone and cameraman. "Ms. Williams, would you like to comment on today's event? Many viewers are wondering about your perspective after yesterday's incident." Karen glanced at the camera, then at the expectant faces surrounding her. The neighborhood she had appointed herself to protect was united against her position. She could double down or she could reconsider. She began, then paused. "I believe in rules and order. That's always been my position." The crowd tensed. "But," Karen continued, surprising everyone, "I may have been overzealous in my interpretation yesterday. The situation with the Martinez family is exceptional." She turned to face Emma and Lucas directly. "I wasn't aware of the full circumstances regarding your mother. I hope she recovers quickly." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was something. The tension in the air diffused slightly. Richard Thompson seized the moment. "Karen has been a dedicated advocate for maintaining our neighborhood standards for many years. I'm sure we can all appreciate that commitment, even when we disagree on specific applications." Karen nodded stiffly, then turned and walked back toward her house. The crowd parted to let her through, the confrontation diffused in an unexpectedly anticlimactic manner. As she reached her front door, Karen paused and looked back at the sea of yellow shirts, the neighbors talking and laughing, the sense of community that had formed in opposition to her actions but had become something more. For the first time, she wondered if she had been missing something important all along. She closed her door quietly, shutting out the celebration that continued without her. As the afternoon sun began its descent, casting long shadows across Oak Ridge Heights, the Lemonade Brigade event reached its emotional peak. Miguel Martinez gathered the volunteers and supporters around his family's original lemonade stand. "I don't have the words to thank you all enough," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "When Emma and Lucas set up this little stand yesterday, we were just hoping to raise a few dollars towards Sarah's treatments. We never imagined." He gestured at the crowd, momentarily overwhelmed. Emma stepped forward, holding her father's hand. "My mom always says that when people work together, miracles happen." I think she was right. Jessica Lynn from Channel 7 had set up a live feedback to the station. "Can you tell us how much has been raised today?" she asked. Ms. Winters stepped forward with a clipboard. "We've been tallying the donations from each stand. With the cash donations, checks, and online contributions through the QR codes." She paused for dramatic effect. "The total currently stands at $15,437. The crowd erupted in cheers. Miguel covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "That's enough for the first round of the experimental treatment," he managed to say when he regained his composure. "And the deposit for the second." Lucas tugged at his father's shirt. "Can we call Mom now? Can we tell her?" Miguel nodded, pulling out his phone. The crowd hushed as he dialed the hospital room. Someone connected a Bluetooth speaker so everyone could hear. "Hello." Sarah's voice was weak but clear over the speaker. "Sarah, you're on speakerphone," Miguel said. "There are some people here who want to talk to you." "Mom." Emma and Lucas shouted together. "We did it. We raised the money for your medicine." "What? How?" Sarah asked, confusion evident in her voice. Miguel explained briefly about the lemonade stand, Karen's reaction, and the extraordinary community response. There must be 200 people here right now, he concluded. All supporting you. We love you, Mrs. Martinez, someone called out, followed by a chorus of well wishes. On the other end of the line they could hear Sarah crying. I don't know what to say. Thank you all so much. It gives me hope. Keep fighting, Sarah, Ms. Winters called out. We've got your back. After the call ended, Miguel addressed the crowd once more. Sarah and I moved here 5 years ago because we liked the houses and the school district. We never realized until today that what we really found was a family. Each one of you has given us something more valuable than money. You've given us hope and community. As the gathering began to disperse, volunteers worked together to clean up. Tables were folded, coolers emptied, and signs carefully preserved as mementos. The Martinez children, exhausted but elated, sat counting the day's earnings under the watchful eye of Ms. Winters. From her window, Karen Williams observed the cleanup. After a long internal debate, she slipped outside and approached Miguel, who was loading folding chairs into a neighbor's truck. Mr. Martinez, she said quietly. Miguel turned, surprise evident on his face. Karen held out an envelope. For your wife's treatment. I hope it helps. Miguel accepted the envelope with a nod. No words were necessary. As Karen walked back to her house, she noticed the neighbors' reactions. Surprise, but also something like respect for the gesture. It was a small step, but perhaps the beginning of a different relationship with the community she had sought to regulate for so long. The sun set on Oak Ridge Heights, the last yellow shirts disappeared around corners and into houses, and the neighborhood returned to its usual quiet state. But something fundamental had changed. Connections had been forged, priorities re-examined, compassion reawakened. In the Martinez home, Emma and Lucas fell asleep on the couch again, this time with smiles on their faces. Miguel sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by donation envelopes, composing a text message to Sarah's doctor. We can proceed with the treatment. The funds are ready.